Well, this week we are focusing on the arrival of the wise men from the east, and for the annual pastoral service announcement, the wise men should not be in your nativity set because they did not arrive for 2 years. If you want to put them off to the side so that they're on the way to meet Jesus, I won't quibble with that. But if I'm in your house next December and there are wise men standing right next to Mary and Joseph, I might just palm them on my way out just to reinforce historical accuracy. Next week we're going to start a new series looking at the book of James in the New Testament. We're going to call this series Serious Faith because James is encouraging his readers to take their faith seriously every day. But today we will give the wise men their due. If I'm going to harp on their absence at the birth of Jesus, I should give them their proper time to shine. We will do that today through the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and we have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all of Jerusalem with him. Calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born, and they told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of the Lord, so thanks be to God. Well, my younger son likes Legos. Well, okay. He really likes Legos. Or if I'm not kidding anyone here, he is passionate about Legos. In fact, he might even be addicted to Legos. Is there a group for that? It probably meets at Legoland. Now, I can't really cast any stones on this, lest my glass house be exposed, because when I was a kid, we had a table that actually lowered from the ceiling that was filled with our Legos. And when my parents wanted the mess gone, up went the table to the ceiling. I still don't actually know how my dad convinced my mom that that was a good idea. I think he just thought it was cool and then decided to figure out a justification later. Regardless, I also loved Legos when I was growing up. I even taught Lego robotics at an elementary school in Austin when I was a young computer programmer. Now, given his love for Legos and my shared love for Legos, I decided to make him a deal. If he could learn how to follow the instructions and build sets on his own without help, I promised to build him a Lego table. Challenge accepted, and miraculously, actually the very next day, he discovered that he did not actually need my help for the small and medium-sized Lego sets. But I made a costly mistake with this deal. You see, I was picturing like a flat table covered in those Lego build plates, like the base plates, and that's a pretty simple, straightforward build. But here was my costly mistake. He saw me looking at Lego table designs on the internet. That was a mistake because his eyes, of course, were drawn to the one with the moat around the edges and the raised building platform in the middle. Now, I had to admit, it did look pretty cool on the internet, but I mean, not as cool as a table that lowers and raises into the ceiling, but still pretty cool. So the project expanded a little bit. But it started with just a big picture idea, build a Lego table. But that led to some questions about implementation. Where will the table live? And therefore, what dimensions make sense? How can I make it at the right height for today, but also not make it too short that it's ignored in a year? Then what lumber will I need? And oh wait, you wanted that design? Back to the drawing board. I started with a big picture idea, the destination, the goal, build a Lego table. But then I had to back up and figure out the actual steps. The wise men from the East experienced a bit of a Lego table moment in our text today. As I've shared before, it was not common for ancient astrologers to make journeys to celebrate the birth of a foreign king. They were very careful observers of the stars, and they had intricate rules for interpreting things like the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn that we just saw right before Christmas this year. So it was not strange for the astrologers to notice something in the sky and then interpret it as a sign. That's pretty much what they did. It wasn't strange for them to associate an occurrence in a particular stretch of the sky with a particular group of people. They had books of how to translate that, but it was very strange for them to journey for 2 years across the desert, bringing gifts to celebrate the birth of a foreign king. That was strange. So here's how I picture it. I picture the three of them comparing notes about the movement of the stars, and one of them says to the group, hey, did you see that new star? Jimmy, you've got the notes on interpreting that. What does that mean in your notes? And by the way, Jimmy is a very common name for Persian astrologers, as we all know. And then Jimmy says, oh, here on scroll 42, it says a new and special king must be born in the land of the Hebrews. And so the third one, Carlos, another very common name for Persian astrologers, says, well, I had a dream last night, and we crossed the desert together. Perhaps this means we should go see this new king. And so all three of them decide that their goal for the next few years, together they would go celebrate the birth of this new special king of the Jews. If you're going to get your own star in the sky, you must be something special. Now I'm using my sanctified imagination here, so I could be getting some or all of these details wrong, but what I imagine next is that then they go home, right? And they excitedly tell their wives about this special mission from the gods, and that's when some questions start popping up. Oh, really? You're gonna leave us here for how long? And what are you gonna wear during this journey? And oh, by the way, who's gonna cook for you? Because I'm not crossing that desert with you. Oh, and do you even know where you're going? And are you gonna bring like a housewarming gift or something? Or are you just going to show up in your dusty robes, hop off your camel, and hope to receive a happy welcome from this foreign king? You see, they knew their divinely inspired goal. Go see this new special king of the Jews. But then, once they had that goal, they had to back up and fill in the details. Sometimes God gives us a big picture idea or a destination or a goal, and that eureka moment, that's great when you have that breakthrough and you know your destination. Then we have to back up and fill in the details. What kind of Lego table, what gifts should we bring across the desert to this new king? Is there anything, a big picture, a destination, a goal that God is leading you toward? Maybe God is leading you toward a relationship to restore. If so, how can you start? Why would they want to hear from you? Why would they care what you have to say? What do you need to own personally in this relationship? Those are some of the details you might need to back up, fill in. Maybe God is leading you toward a cause or a group to support. What skills or experiences do you bring to the table? How can you make a difference? Who should you contact first? Those are some details you might need to fill in. Maybe God is leading you towards something internal, an attitude to change, or some investment in your soul or your character. How can you cultivate that thing that is God honoring? How will you change your time to invest in that internal change? How will you know that you're making progress? Those are some details you might need to fill in. Sometimes God gives us a big picture idea or a destination or a goal, and then God expects us to go back and fill in the details, like figuring out how to cross the desert and honor a foreign king, like going from the idea of a Lego table to actual plans and materials. Is God leading you towards something big? If so, how can you fill in the details in a God-honoring way? Now, generally, I do not watch much television, and I especially do not watch reality TV. There is one show that I have watched a handful of times, probably less than 10, but that's way more than most that I've watched, and I actually enjoyed it, and that was The Amazing Race. Now, the basic concept here is that teams try to follow the clues to reach the next pit stop on their journey. The first team to arrive at the pit stop gets like a bonus, and the last team to arrive either gets eliminated or has a big disadvantage for the next leg. But they don't just like get an address for their destination. That would not be dramatic enough for a show that has managed to rack up 32 seasons and counting. No, they get a clue, like the westernmost point in mainland Europe, or just a picture of a flag. And sometimes they're required to get there in a specific way, like walking or biking or flying or renting a Jeep. And then along the way, there are detours and roadblocks and challenges too. One team, for example, had to eat 4 pounds of barbecue to get past their roadblock. The show does not dole out the final destination. They give a steady drip of clues and pit stops, and the teams are expected to figure out the destination along the way. The Amazing Race, from that perspective, is like the opposite of what we have been talking about today. And instead of getting the destination ahead of time, they just get the next step, the next clue, the next challenge. They know there is a destination, but it's hidden at the start of the episode. Sometimes God gives us the destination and wants us to fill in the details like he did for the wise men, but other times God just gives us the next step, or the next clue, or the next challenge along the way. And we have to trust that God has a destination in mind, but we don't know it yet. I believe this actually happened a few different times in our text today. For example, the gifts that were brought by the wise men. Frankincense was like a high-quality incense or perfume. Gold, you're probably aware of. Myrrh was another perfume that also had some medicinal uses. So perfume, medicine, and gold, those are still some of the most expensive things by weight. If you doubt me, may I interest you in some of Jean Patou's Joy Baccarat limited edition perfume. To quote the marketing materials on this perfume is created with an astonishing 10,600 jasmine flowers, 28 dozens of roses per bottle. This limited edition marvel ups the ante even more with a keepsake Baccarat bottle, an expression of joy that isn't fleeting. All of this is available to you for the cool price of $1,800 per bottle. And in case you're wondering, it is not a Costco-sized bottle, even at that exorbitant price. So the 3 wise men chose gifts they thought would be worthy of a king. Extravagant, expensive items that would be valuable in any country at the time. They also knew that they would have to schlep these gifts across a desert, so they chose kingly gifts that were lightweight, portable. These kingly and highly portable gifts were about to play a much bigger role than the wise men ever imagined. But they didn't know about that destination. They just needed to do their part. Their one step in the ultimate plan. They just needed to bring those gifts to the parents of Jesus. Now stay with me here, because that gold and the frankincense and the myrrh, they're about to play a major role. They're about to become really useful to Mary and Joseph. We heard in our text today, our other text today, the first text we read, what happened right after the wise men left. An angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. Remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." I mean, what if an angel told you to get up and leave for another country tomorrow, right? Oh, and by the way, your accounts will be frozen. Your house will be seized. If you have a stock portfolio, it will be seized as well. All you can bring with you is what you can carry. You have 24 hours starting now. That'd be scary? I think so. I mean, what would you bring? And then, what if you got that message and you were as poor as Mary and Joseph? It's not like Joseph can like pack up a whole woodworking shop and stick it on the back of a donkey, right? They had so little. And Joseph probably couldn't bring most of the tools of his trade. They just had to leave tomorrow for another country and remain there until I tell you. They don't know how long they're going to be there. Can you imagine this? First off, let's stop and notice that the Joseph's vision, that's actually another example of receiving just the next step of the plan instead of the ultimate goal. Just go to Egypt until I call you back. Trust me. But second, do you know what would be like really useful in this kind of situation? What would be really useful is something like really valuable, valued in every culture at the time, and highly portable, to finance this refugee operation. You know, it'd be really useful, like maybe some gold, and some frankincense, and some myrrh. How about all three? I've known refugees who were like respected doctors in their home country, and then once they became refugees, they had to take like janitor positions at their new land. If you're a refugee, you don't need knowledge or skills or a trade at first. You need cold hard cash, right? And Joseph and Mary had none of that until these wise men brought them gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now, these wise men never knew that their gifts financed Jesus' family fleeing execution by Herod. They just did their part. They just did their next step. God took care of the destination. And then when they were about to go home, God told them to go back without going through Jerusalem again, another next step. Now, this actually was not a super easy change of plans, by the way. They had to go a considerable distance out of their way to avoid Jerusalem, or they had to go through some very sketchy roads and risk their safety. They didn't know why. They were just warned in a dream, don't go back that way. They just followed their next step. God took care of the goal. So maybe instead of God leading you toward some big picture idea or a destination, maybe God is just giving you a next step, a next action. It may not even make sense. It might send you off across a desert, packing a bottle of perfume for a baby king in a foreign land. When God gives you one step at a time, He wants you to trust Him with the big picture and just follow through with your step, your part. So has something been poking around in your mind lately? Has someone been on your heart lately? Has an idea been noodling around? Take one step and trust God with the next one. Sisters and brothers, sometimes God gives us a big picture idea or a long-term goal, and He expects us to go back and fill in the details. Summarize what the wise men heard. You, wise men, cross the desert, bring something nice for the baby king. Then they filled in the gaps. Other times, God gives us just one step at a time. Joseph, leave for Egypt tomorrow. Or wise men, take the long way home. In that case, when we just get one step at a time, he expects us to trust that God has a bigger picture in mind. So what has God been whispering or shouting to you? Even if you don't understand where he's going yet, will you follow him? Like the wise men did. Like Joseph and Mary did. Amen.